I'm from a very musical family. My mom's a pianist, classical pianist, and my dad plays the trumpet, and there was definitely always music in my house growing up. So I think that from a very early age I was exposed to a lot of different kinds of music. I decided that I wanted to do my own music because I think that that's really the place where I express myself. I think maybe this is true of a lot of artists, and it's definitely true of me that I don't necessarily always express myself that well in daily life, you know, and when I write music, that's my way of saying this is me that's talking. I definitely take elements from classical music and jazz and folk as well into my own music. I would say that, I mean, sometimes I'll even take a classical piece and try to modernize it or try to do something with it, the same with folk music. So I do that quite a lot, and I think that there's always something to be learned from music that was written hundreds of years ago, because styles may change, but there are just great masters, you know, from every period of music. Very often I'll write the words on the music at the same time. I don't really know why. I've tried, you know, a few times I've had to write music to somebody's lyrics or lyrics to somebody's music, and I've always found it really, really hard. I like to use words in a not literal way, and I like to try to use them to maybe just evoke an emotion or maybe just evoke a state of mind, as opposed to necessarily saying something that's very concrete. The song's called Blue Kryptonite, and I have always been really inspired by the idea of heroes, you know, and superheroes. And I think that everybody has that superhero in them, you know, but you gotta watch out for people, and you gotta watch out for kryptonite. Born Blind is actually literally about not being able to see. It's about really having a physical disability that is interfering with your life and making it harder for you to do what you want to do. I do think it has, I guess, a more general context, in the sense of that we all are kind of born with our own strengths and weaknesses, whether that be physical or psychological or what have you. And there are certain things that we can overcome, and then there are things that we can't. And it's a struggle to accept those things, because oftentimes it's like the one thing, well, if only I could do this, if only I could do that, and it's the one thing that you're not going to be able to do. And that song is about coming to terms with that and finding some good in that. It's one of those things where you don't even realize how amazing and how diverse and how culturally rich a city it is until you leave. You know, I spent several years in the States, and when I come back to Montreal, I always feel very inspired, and I always feel great to be back here. Well, I've been working with Aaron for a few years now. We met actually at Berkeley College of Music. He was my supervisor on a live sound crew, and I have enjoyed working with him immensely. Aaron definitely introduced me to Alice in Chains, and I actually really, before I started working with him, I really was not a rock music person at all, and I feel like, I mean, at this point, Alice in Chains is actually one of my favorite bands. I think they're fantastic, and what I love about that song in particular, I mean, the version that we do is very quiet, you know, and but it still has that anger that's in the song. So that's kind of what I like about it, that it has this very contained anger that you're expressing, but very slowly and very calmly. And I think that sometimes it feels better to express it that way than to, you know, than to go whole hog and yell and scream. I do really love Seal as a songwriter. I also love Joni Mitchell. I love Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson. That was the stuff that I really grew up listening to, was you know, kind of pop music from the 80s and the 90s. I have a bit of an opera background. I studied with Beverly McGuire, who teaches at Concordia, and I also studied with Colette Bouquet, who's at UQAM. And I was in Carmen there, which was amazing, and got to be around some fantastic singers. It was, what I loved about the program was that there were people from every level that you could imagine. There were people who were really like on the brink of having a professional career, and then there were students that were just really starting out. So you got everybody together, and I think that's like the greatest atmosphere to learn in. You know, I certainly do love to perform. I'm not the fame monster, you know, I'm not that person that feels that they have to be in the spotlight all the time in order to be happy, or that they have to always have the attention or have people looking at them. But at the same time, I do think that there's a feeling that you get when you're on stage in front of an audience communicating your music that you can't just get from being a composer behind the scenes. So in that sense, it is something that I live for, that feeling of just getting up there and spilling your emotions out on stage and hoping that people will get something from that.